I said there'd be a reading after we did the Living on a Prairie thing, but I had to watch the Living on a Prairie thing because it was awesome. I love Charlotte Stewart. Do you love Charlotte Stewart? Do we all love Charlotte Stewart? Miss Beavis is the best. So I got a bonnet. Yes, we had many bonnets. I was going to say, we had many bonnets. Had bonnets. We sort of had bonnets because you guys bought them all. You did. I did. I put them up online, and what happens? I turn around, and you've bought them. But I have more on the way. More are on the way. And look, I am bebonneted. And look, what's going on? So much is going on. What's today? Today, oh boy, well, it's Sunday. And wow. Do you know that it's National Yucatan Shrimp Day? Which sounds delicious. I'm not sure I've had this. Aviation Maintenance Technician Day. That's important. Brothers Day. Scavenger Hunt Day. Is it Escargot Day? It is. It's Escargot Day. J'adore des escargots. Yes, I eat the escargot. Tu manges des escargots? Oui, je mange des escargots. Or, and I told my French people that they asked me, what do they call escargot in restaurants here in America? And I say, well, they call it escargot because if they said snails on the menu, no one would order it. Like, oh, it's escargot. It's snails. They're good. I don't know. Do you like shrimp? You probably like escargot. It's National Wyoming Day. Anyone from Wyoming? Is anyone from Wyoming there? No, hello. Hey, everybody who watched my show that I did over there in the living room, the Confessions of a Prairie Terror. We're doing it again in June, which is like way awesome. It'll be on a Thursday, which is crazy, but it'll be great. We're doing it then. Is my sound all the way up? I worry about these things. See? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, y'all can hear me. You'd be telling me you couldn't hear me. You'd be yelling at me if you couldn't hear me now. So now you can. So we did the show on the 16th and the 9th, and a bunch of you tuned in, and a bunch of you bought many tickets or tipped and did crazy things. And we had prizes, but I'm looking, it's like the same three people over and over again. It's like first, second, and third prize winner, and you're all completely evenly tied. First prize is 3 people. And I'm seeing, and some of them are also the winners for the next night. So no, I'm going to give you a prize, but what I'm going to do, you know who you are. You totally know who you are. We know who you are. Yes, yeah, Yep. Amy, Randy, you know who you are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to email ya and say, hey, what would you like your prize to be? Would you like it? Because some of you already got bonnets, and some of you already got autographed copies of my book, but I don't think you have tin cups. So I will email you and say, would you like it to be a bonnet and a cup and a thing? What would you like? Because I got stuff for days, and we will work it out, and we will make you happy. That's my job. So I just watched episode 1 of Living on a Prairie and the interview with me and Charlotte, and it was hilarious. I love Charlotte. Charlotte is so awesome. And you're all ordering beetle bags like crazy. Yeah, she was just messaging us going, I can't believe it. So I got some goldfish. Are there any Frenchies today? French folk today, because I have my goldfish, my Johnny. It's Johnny Holiday. Wait. I have some juice. Well, if someone say, how do I win? Well, June, what am I, the 25th? It's at the Thursday night in June. I'm going to be doing the show again over there. I'll put the link up and everything. And if you watch a show and you're there and you're tipping, who knows, you could be the next one. It's by the shores of Silver Lake. We're still at it. Ooh, look, coming down the home stretch. Always exciting to have a new book. Now, I said, you're just getting one chapter today because we're running late and so much is going on. It's a holiday weekend, and I got stuff to do. But it's good. It's the spring rush because we just did Christmas, and then on the Pilgrim Way where Reverend Alden brought a Scotsman over to the Ingalls. And, okay, Paul's still saying, I swear, I'm going to go get our homestead claim tomorrow. Oh, wait, it's snowing. Next week. And it's like, it's been a year, and now Mr. and Mrs. Boast were like, yeah, we got ours. You didn't get yours already? So Carolyn said, go. Would you just go? So this is now he's realizing it's time. the spring rush. This is where strange people show up at the house again. No music tonight. Pa said that evening at the supper table, early to bed and early to rise, and day after tomorrow, our claims filed on the homestead. So he's like, yes, we're doing it. I'll be glad, Charles, said Ma. After all the bustle of last night and this morning, the house was quiet and composed again. The supper work was done. Grace slept in the trundle bed, and Ma was packing the lunch that Pa would eat on his way to Brookins. Go get that claim. Listen, Mary said. I hear somebody talking. Laura pressed her face to a window pane and shut out the lamplight with her hands. Against the snow, she saw a dark team and a wagon full of men. One of them shouted again, then another jumped to the ground. Pa went to meet him, and they stood talking. Then Pa came in and shut the door behind him. There's 5 of them, Carolyn, he said. Strangers, on their way to Huron. There isn't room for them here, Ma said, because they have Mary, Laura, Carrie, Grace, Ma, and Pa. And again, yes, it's the surveyor's house. It's still small. And let's just have 5 people come in. They're all going to sleep on the floor. Pa's like inviting everybody. It's just like everybody comes over. Caroline, we've got to put them up for the night. There isn't any other place they can stay or get a bite to eat. Their team is tired out, and they're greenhorns. Greenhorns, I love that. If they try to get to Huron tonight, they'll lose themselves on the prairie and maybe freeze to death. Greenhorns, meaning city folk who aren't accustomed to crossing the prairie, like the Ingalls, who aren't real good at that sort of thing, too smart. And they're schlepping to Huron, and they don't know what they're doing, and they'll freeze to death. It'll be bad. And that's the thing. Motels. This is why they invented places like the Motel 6 and Motel 8. This is why we have Days Inn and those lovely little places along the road, because people got to get driving, and the Ingalls aren't there to let them sleep on their floor. People got to stay somewhere. So, now we have that, but then there's nothing out there. Ma sighed. Well, you know best, Charles. That's when she's like, you're crazy, but okay, we're going to do that. So Ma cooked supper for the 5 strange men. They filled the place with their loud boots and loud voices, and their bedding piled in heaps, ready to make their beds on the floor by the stove. Well, they brought their own bedding. It's good. Even before the supper dishes were finished, Ma took her hands from the dishwater and said quietly, It's bedtime, girls. It was not bedtime, but they knew that she meant they were not allowed to stay downstairs among these strange men. Carrie followed Mary through the stair door, but Ma held Laura back to slip into her hand a strong sliver of wood. Push this into the slot above the latch, Ma said. Push it in well and leave it there. Then no one can lift the latch and open the door. I want the door to be locked. Don't come down till I call you tomorrow morning. Oh, see, Ma don't trust these men. Remember, Ma said, no, don't go down by the rail yard. And then she said, you might hear some rough language. These guys are drunken, awful, terrible. And now 5 strange men are in the house, 5 guys. And how old is Laura now? 13, 14. How old's Mary? 15. How old are these girls? These girls are teenagers. Pretty. And how gorgeous is Mary? And she's blind. Can't defend herself. And little Laura, and then, of course, little Carrie and baby Grace. And there's poor Ma and Pa to hold off 5 men. Ma knows. Ma is thoroughly and properly paranoid. Charles is like, it'll be fine. Ma's like, here, lock yourself in. She's like, Yeah, she's cautious. Ma's no dummy. In the morning, Laura and Mary and Carrie lay in bed after the sun was up. Downstairs, they heard the strangers talking and breakfast dishes clattering. Now, that's really late. They all got up before sunup. Ma said not to come till she called us, Laura insisted. I wish they'd go away, said Carrie. I don't like strangers. I don't either, and neither does Ma, Laura said. It takes them a long time to get started because they're greenhorns. At last they were gone. And at dinner, Pa said he would go to Brookins tomorrow. No use starting unless I start early, he said. It's a long day's trip, and there's no sense in starting after sunup and having to camp out overnight in this cold. Boy, he's really stalling, isn't he? Oh, no, that night more strangers came. The next night, there were more. They're just putting everybody up. Ma's going to be nailing that hatch to the attic shut soon. She couldn't get out the gun. Ma said, "Mercy on us! Are we to have one night in peace by ourselves?" "I can't help it, Caroline," said Pa. "We can't refuse folks shelter when there's nowhere else they can stay." "We can charge them for it, Charles," Ma said firmly. Ma's ready to open a boarding house and start charging. Ma's like, "How much?" Pa did not like to charge folks for shelter and a meal, but he knew that Ma was right. Yeah, Pa don't want to charge him for a meal, but Pa's not the one cooking and doing the dishes, is he? Just saying. He knew she was right, so he charged 25 cents a meal and 25 cents for shelter overnight for man or horse. Now that's good. That's not much, even in those days. A hot meal like Ma's cooking for 25 cents, very good deal. And 25 cents to stay the night in a nice warm house and even sleep on the floor. That was a good deal. And since there's tons of them, and she's having to cook, she's cooking and doing the cleaning up after them. Pa's not doing all that cooking and cleaning. Somebody better get 25 cents out of this. There was no more singing, no more comfortable suppers or cozy evenings. Every day, more strangers crowded around the supper table. Every night, as soon as all the dishes were washed, Laura and Mary and Carrie had to go up to the attic and fasten the door behind them. Okay, Ma's like running a bed and breakfast, and it's not as much fun as it looks. The strangers were from Iowa, from Ohio, from Illinois and Michigan, from Wisconsin and Minnesota, and even from faraway New York and Vermont. They were going to Huron or to Fort Pierce or even farther west, looking for homesteads. One morning, Laura sat up in bed listening. "Where's Pa, I wonder?" She said. "I don't hear Pa's voice. That's Mr. Bose talking." "Maybe he's gone to get the homestead," Mary guessed. When at last the loaded wagons went away to the west and Ma called the girls downstairs, she said that Pa had started before sunup. "He didn't want to go and leave us in this rush," she said, "but he had to. Someone else will get the homestead if he doesn't hurry. We had no idea that people would rush in here like this, and March hardly begun." Now she says, he didn't want to go, but he had to. What she means is, she dragged him out of bed and said, "Go." She made him. You know, she went, "Charles, 15 people just like came through here and stayed at her house. They're all getting claims, and you still haven't even gone to the office. Get up, go. I don't want to hear anymore. Just start walking, riding, beat it, scram." She made him go, that's for sure. This was the first week in March, being more specific about the time. And we now know it's 1880, too. They finally told us. The door was open and the air felt like spring. "When March comes in like a lamb, it goes out like a lion," said Ma. "Oh, I've only heard comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb." Well, I guess other way as vice versa. "Well, come, girls, there's work to be done. Let's get this house in order before more travelers come." "I wish nobody'd come till Pa gets back," Laura said, while she and Carrie washed the stacks of dishes. "Maybe nobody will," Carrie hoped. Yeah, stacks of dishes. And Pa was like, "We don't need to charge them, do we?" And Ma's like, "I'm washing my 87th dish. Yes, you charge it. Yeah, holla." "Mr. Boast is going to look after things while your Pa's gone," Ma said. "He asked Mr. and Mrs. Boast to stay here. They'll sleep in the bedroom, Grace, and I'll go upstairs with you girls." Smart. I still think Ma did that. I think Ma said, "You're going. Oh, and by the way, the Boasts are staying here because I don't want to get murdered by your like weirdo traveler friends that you let in." I mean, they could get robbed. Anything could happen. Terrible. But the Boasts are going to stay. That's cool. Mrs. Boast came to help. That day they cleaned the whole house and moved the beds. They were all very tired. When the last of the sunset they saw a wagon coming from the east. There were 5 men in it. Mr. Boast helped them put their horses in the stable. Mrs. Boast helped Ma cook their suppers. They had not finished eating when another wagon brought 4 men. There's too many people in that house to begin with. And then the Boast, and there's 9 guys have just shown up to crash. Laura cleared the table, washed the dishes, and helped put supper on the table for them. They're serving multiple shifts of dinner here. While they were eating, a third wagon brought 6 men. There are hotels that do not hold this many people. I'm just reaching over here. I need to clear. See, out of shot here. Huh? Oh, my nose. This is like a math problem. If Ma Ingalls makes dinner and 3 wagons show up with how many men per each wagon? So wait, she just had they had a wagon of 5 guys, and then another wagon with 4 guys. We're up to 9, and then 6. Wait, 15! 15 people. Mary had gone upstairs to be away from the crowd. Quite rightly. Carrie sang Grace to sleep in the bedroom with the door shut. Laura cleared the table again and washed the dishes again. "This is the worst yet," Ma said to Mrs. Boast when they met in the pantry. "There isn't room for 15 on the floor, and we'll have to put some beds in the lean-to. And they'll have to use their robes and blankets and coats for bedding." "Rob will tend to it. I'll speak to him," said Mrs. Boast. "Mercy me, that's not another wagon." They're going to pull 15 people in this house. No. Laura had to wash those dishes again and reset the table again. Oh, no. The house was so full of strange men, strange eyes, and strange voices, and bulky coats and muddy boots that she could hardly get through the crowd. No, there's hardly room for them to stand in the house at 15 men, and now another wagon just arrived, let alone lay on the floor and sleep. I don't know, where are they going to put them on? Well, she said they're going to put some in the lean-to. It's March. It's warming up a little. I guess they could put some in the barn if they got a stove out there. I don't know, man. It's crazy. At last, they were all fed, and for the last time, the last dish was washed. Ma, with Grace in her arms, followed Laura and Carrie to the stairs and carefully fastened the door behind them. Mary was sleeping in bed, and Laura could not keep her eyes open while she undressed. So she was exhausted. She's been cooking for 27 people here. But as soon as she lay down, she was awakened by the noise downstairs. There was loud talking and walking. Ma sat up to listen. The downstairs bedroom was still, so Mr. Boast must think that the noise was all right. Ma lay down again. The noise grew louder. Sometimes it almost stopped, and then suddenly it burst out. A crash shook the house, and Laura sat straight up crying, "Ma, what's that?" Ma's voice was so low that it seemed louder than all the shouting downstairs. "Be quiet, Laura," she said. "Lie down." Laura thought she could not sleep. She was so tired that the noise tormented her, but another crash woke her out of a sound sleep. Ma said, "It's all right, Laura. Mr. Boast is there." Laura slept again. I hope she brought the China shepherdess up. These guys sound clumsy. In the morning, Ma gently shook her awake and whispered, "Come, Laura, it's time to get breakfast. Let the others sleep." They went downstairs together. Mr. Boast had taken up the beds. Tousled, sleepy, and red-eyed, the men were getting into their boots and coats. Ma and Mrs. Boast hurried breakfast. The table was small. There were not dishes enough, so Laura had to set the table and wash the dishes 3 times. At last the men were gone, and Ma called Mary while she and Mrs. Boast cooked more breakfast, and Laura washed dishes and set the table once more. They're now running a restaurant. It's Nellie's Hotel. They got a restaurant hotel, and they have like 2 rooms. It's craziness. At last the men were gone. "Phew! My, such a night!" Mrs. Boast exclaimed. What was the matter? Mary wondered. I think they were drunk, Ma said, tight-lipped. Ma just said they were drunk. "Oh, I should say they were," Mr. Boast told her. "They brought bottles and a jug of whiskey. I thought once I would have to interfere, but what could I do against a crowd of 15 drunks? I decided to let them fight it out unless they set the house afire." "Oh, well, good Mr. Boast, you drew the line at setting the house on fire. I got to know that." "I'm thankful they didn't," said Ma. That day, a young man drove up to the house with a load of lumber. He had hauled the boards from Brookins to build a store on the town site. Pleasantly, he urged Ma to board him while he was building, and Ma could not refuse because there was no other place he could eat. Next, a man came with his son from Sioux Falls. It just does not stop. They had brought lumber to build a grocery store. They begged Ma to board them, and after she agreed, she said to Laura, "Might as well be hung for a sheep as well as a lamb." I love that expression. My mother used to say that. It's a very old expression. To be hung for a sheep, as well as a lamb, is that, say you were stealing livestock, and the penalty was hanging, as often it was in these places, like horse thieves. So, are you going to go steal a lamb or steal a great big fat sheep? Because you're going to might as well be hung for a sheep as well as a lamb. If I'm going to hang, you might as well go the rest of the way and steal a whole sheep. Terrible. Hung for a sheep as well as a lamb. Going to go the whole way. My mother used that expression. If Ingalls doesn't hurry back, we'll have a town here before he comes, said Mrs. Boast. I only hope he's not too late to file on the homestead, Ma replied anxiously. So all these guys, and these guys are staying, not just crashing for the night, because they're building a town there. So here they are moving to go have a homestead by the town, but there can be a town where they are. So it's crazy. So yeah, so that is Spring Rush. And since you've been so good, and it's a short one, I'm going to get second. Okay, look, this craziness, pause, bet, and there are people fighting. It's nuts. That day did not seem real. Well, I guess not, all these people. Laura's eyelids felt sandy, and she yawned all the time, yet she did not feel sleepy. At noon, young Mr. Hines and the two Mr. Hawthorns came to dinner. In the afternoon, their hammers could be heard pounding on the framework of the new buildings. It seemed a long time that Pa had gone. He did not come that night. All the next day he did not come. That night he did not come. And now Laura was sure that he was having a hard time to get to get that homestead. Perhaps he might not get it. If he did not get it, perhaps they would go west to Oregon. Can you imagine? Oregon. California even. Ma would not let any more strangers sleep in the house. Yes, only Mr. Hines and the two Hawthorns bunked down on the floor by the stove. The weather was not so cold that men would freeze sleeping in their wagons. Ma charged 25 cents just for supper, and far into the night she and Mrs. Bose cooked and Laura washed dishes. So many men came to eat that she did not try to count them. Late in the afternoon on the fourth day, Pa came home. He waved as he drove by to put the tired team in the stable, and he walked smiling into the house. Oh, well, isn't he always the happy one? Mm-hmm. Well, Caroline, girls, he said, we got the claim. You got it, Ma exclaimed joyfully. I went after it, didn't I? Pa laughed. Brr, it's chilly riding. Let me get to the stove and warm myself. Ma shook down the fire. She shook down the fire and set the kettle boiling for tea. Did you have any trouble, Charles? She asked. You wouldn't believe it, said Pa. I never saw such a jam. It looked like the whole country's trying to file on land. I got to Brookins all right the first night, and next morning when I showed up at the land office, I couldn't get anywheres near the door. Every man had to stand in line and wait his turn. So many were ahead of me that my turn didn't come that day. You didn't stand there all day, Pa, Laura cried. Yes, Flutterbudget, all day. Without anything to eat? Oh, no, Pa, said Carrie. Pshaw, that didn't worry me. What worried me was the crowds. I kept thinking maybe somebody ahead of me is getting my quarter section. Caroline, you never saw such crowds, but my worry then wasn't a patch to what came later. What, Pa? Laura asked. Let a fellow get his breath, Flutterbudget. Well, when the land office closed, I went along in the jam to get supper at the hotel, and I heard a couple of men talking. One filed a claim near Huron. The other said De Smet was going to be a better town than Huron, and then he mentioned the very piece I picked out last winter. He told the numbers he was going to file on it first thing next morning. He said it was the only piece left vacant anywhere near this town site, so he was going to have it, though he'd never seen it. Well, that was enough for me. Well, come on, they've only been waiting for you to file this claim for a year and a half. So, yeah, I had to beat him to that claim. At first I thought I'd be up bright and early next morning. Then I figured I wouldn't take any chances. So as soon as I got some supper, I made tracks for the land office. I thought it was closed, said Carrie. It was. I settled right down on the doorstep to spend the night. Surely you didn't need to do that, Charles, said Ma, handing him a cup of tea. Need to do that, Pa repeated. I wasn't the only man who had that idea, not by a blamed sight. Luckily, I got there first. Must have been 40 men waiting there all night, and right next to me were them two fellows I'd heard talking. So, Charles and the Guys, in 1880, it was like the opening of Star Wars, or a blockbuster film. They went to the theater, and the people who camp out on the boulevard in front of the movie theater, or the Rose Parade, yup, that's what they've slept on the doorstep to get tickets. He blew on his tea to cool it, and Laura said, "But they didn't know you wanted that piece, did they?" "They didn't know me from Adam," said Pa, drinking the tea, till a fellow came along and sang out, "Hello, Ingalls! So you weathered the winter on Silver Lake. Settling down at De Smet, huh?" "Oh, Pa," Mary wailed. Yes, the fat was in the fire then. Oh, these expressions. The fat's in the fire now. Fat was in the fire. I knew I wouldn't have a chance if I budged from that door, so I didn't. By sunup, the crowd was doubled, and a couple of 100 men must have been pushing and shoving against me before the land office opened. There wasn't any standing in line that day, I tell you. It was each fellow for himself, and devil take the hindmost. Oh, the fat's in the fire. Hung for a sheep as well as a lamb, and devil take the hindmost. We got all of those in like one chapter. Devil take the hindmost. That's an old one. I've heard that's well, all bets are off, and devil take the hindmost, which I think is your butt, basic. That's, yeah, essentially. Devil take the hindmost. The devil behind me. Yikes. Well, girls, finally the door opened. How about some more tea, Caroline? Oh, Pa, go on, Laura cried. Please. Just as it opened, said Pa, the Huron man crowded me back. Get in, I'll hold him, he said to the other fellow. It meant a fight, and while I fought him, the other would get my homestead. Right then, quick as a wink, somebody landed like a ton of bricks on the Huron man. Go in, Ingalls, he yelled. I'll fix him. Yowie! A fight broke out. An actual fight broke out and luckily, friend of Ingalls was there, was like, here, I'll beat these two guys up. We'll just have a brawl in the middle of the street, but go get your clip. And he did. Pa's long catamount screech curled against the walls. Catamount. You heard that? I love him. This one is like a plethora of expressions. Catamount. That's like when they're talking about the panthers and the wildcats and the puma. Catamount. So he screamed like a panther. Catamount screech curled against the walls, and Ma gasped, "Mercy, Charles!" So he went, "Yowie!" is what he did. Ow, that hurt myself. And you'll never guess who it was, said Pa. Mr. Edwards, Laura shouted. Pa was astonished. How did you guess it, Laura? Mr. Edwards is back. I thought like maybe he was like dead, because remember, Mr. Edwards is gone. He said, I'm going down the river. And then we never heard from him again. But by golly, he yelled like that in Indian territory. He's a wildcat from Tennessee. Laura remembered. Oh, Pa, where is he? Did you bring him? I couldn't get him to come home with me, said Pa. I tried every persuasion I could think of, but he's filed on a claim south of here and must stay with it to keep off claim jumpers. He told me to remember him to you, Caroline, and to Mary and Laura. I'd have never have got the claim if it hadn't been for him. Golly, that was a fight he started. Mr. Edwards, wildcat from Tennessee. Pa's trying to get his claim. Mr. Edwards punching people out so that Pa could get his claim. Was he hurt? Mary asked anxiously. Oh, not a scratch. He just started that fight. He got out of it as quick as I ducked inside and started filing my claim. But it was some time before the crowd quieted down. All's well that ends well, Charles, Ma interrupted. She's like, enough with the glorifying the fighting to the children, Charles. I guess so, Caroline, Pa said. Yes, I guess that's right. Well, girls, I've bet Uncle Sam $14 against 160 acres of land that we can make out to live on the claim for 5 years. Gonna help me win the bet? Oh, yes, Pa, Carrie said eagerly, and Mary said, yes, Pa, gladly. And Laura promised soberly, yes, Pa. I don't like to think of it as gambling, Ma said in her gentle way. Everything's more or less a gamble, Caroline, said Pa. Nothing is certain but death and taxes. Yes, even then, in the 1800s, Pa said, nothing's certain but death and taxes. Everything else is a gamble. And he's right. And he ends on that. And then so yes, Laura got that in. Nothing's certain but death and taxes. And here we all are in 2020, and it is true. Nothing is certain but death or taxes. My father used to say, death and taxes. I know. Mr. Edwards was based on a real person-ish sort of. There was some guy from Tennessee who was very not like our Mr. Edwards on the show, who was not named Isaiah or Edwards, but that yes, Laura kind of mixed them up there. But this is like amazing. So you see, you got 2 chapters today. You were good. Bonnets. I put 20 up at the store and gone. You snatched them up. But more are coming. There's a box in the mail. There will be some more. There will be more. And I'll get these orders set. And there's pretty bonnets. So we'll do that. And I'll email you folks who are the winners from the last Saturday nights. And tomorrow's Memorial Day. I got a little barbecue. I got a little like Weber grill, and we're gonna make chicken kebabs with like pineapple and stuff, and have like just me and Bob and the cat have like a little luau ourselves. It'll be very safe, but we will barbecue and have some fun. So you guys have some fun this weekend. Now stay safe. I know a lot of places are opening up, but you don't want to get too many people, not too crowded, not too close. And wash my hands. And you take care of yourselves. And I'll pop in tomorrow. I think I can pop in tomorrow for a quick one, but I'm not firing up the grill. And there's just so much crazy stuff going on. It is awesome. So see you guys tomorrow, and I'll get your bonnets out to you.